This is the What's Next podcast, Houston's #1 platform where I invite creatives to share their journeys and give us a depiction of their visions. Most importantly, the last question I'll ask is, what's next? Jeremiah 29:11 says, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future." Dear John, the iconic legend Quincy Jones said, "To know where you came from makes it easier for you to get where you're going." Sean Diddy Combs said, "Everyone has challenges and lessons to learn. We wouldn't be who we are without them." If 2018 and the last 6 years taught you something, it's that anything is attainable with the right focus and determination. Continue to build. Continue to promote your vision. Continue to inspire creativity and make more creatives. In closing, Nas said, "No idea is original. There's nothing new under the sun. It's never what you do, but how it's done. The first chapter of your vision's movements is done. However, you're still a visionary. Peace and blessings. John Ross."
Yo, it feel like 95, Sachi on my body, Biggie, Jigga, Puffy, all that ballin' is a hobby, and I'm wildin' in my wallet.
Houston, Texas, welcome back to episode number 40. Air horn for that, air horn for that, air horn for that, air horn for that. Episode number 40 of the What's Next podcast, a production of Still Visionary, Inc. My name is John Ross, Dike the First, and Vince, before we get started with the episode, I want to introduce our social media handles so we don't disrupt the flow of the conversation when we get to that point. Go ahead.
All right, so on Facebook, I'm Blackbluez. That's BLACKBLUEZ.
Okay.
And on Instagram, I am Blackbluez.
Okay.
Spelled the same way, BLACKBLUEZ.
Do you have a website?
No, I don't. I don't. What?
No doubt. My name is John Ross Dike the First, and you can follow me on Instagram and on Twitter at John Ross Dike and still _visionary. If you would, connect with me on LinkedIn, subscribe to my YouTube channel. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel, like my fan page on Facebook, and visit my website at stillvisionary.com. If you would, it's the holiday season, so shop stillvisionary.com/apparels. Vince, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you, J. Alfred?
I'm great, man. I am great. This is episode number 40. So we are finally out of the 30s, man, and I'm grateful to have you here.
Right.
So, listen, it's been a long time coming, Virgo brother, that we get a chance to sit across from each other and talk about your journey.
Right.
And you know, you're a poet. You got a lot on your plate. We're gonna dive into everything. But today, before we get started, I want to say shout out to Miss Blue. Today is her birthday.
Hey.
Shout out to you, Miss Blue. Today is your birthday. So when you see this tomorrow would have been your birthday. Creativity comes from experiences.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I know you to be a poet. I know you to be an incredible writer. Courtney mentioned that you were a great writer. Jayla's mentioned that you're a great writer, right? So take me back to the experience that had you start writing.
When I first started writing, it was like I was in junior high school when I really started taking it seriously. But my very, very first poem, that was somebody that I didn't like.
Mm-hmm.
And I wrote a diss rap about that person.
Okay.
And then I accidentally turned it in to my teacher with some of my work because I'm crazy. And she read it and she was like, "Oh, wow." It was kind of vulgar. But she's like, "That's vulgar, but you accidentally turned this in." But she's like, "You're very descriptive. Like, you're really good."
Mm-hmm.
So after that, I would always write and for assignments. And my writing was the one that the teacher would use as an example for everyone.
Yeah.
Like, "Hey, somebody in this class wrote this." And I was always embarrassed. I'm like, "Oh, you're talking about me." But then finally I realized, well, I have a gift.
Mm-hmm.
and that gift is to write and to take stories and just put them down and have other people relate to them.
Okay.
So from that moment on, it's like I just kept writing on my own, writing everything. Like you say, most people know me as a poet,
Yeah.
but I write everything.
Yeah.
I have no limit to what I write.
So do you remember that what you wrote in that paper?
My diss poem?
Yeah.
Oh, no. That was like in the 90s.
Yeah. Houston, Texas, what I like to, so Blackbluez and I, we go way back, obviously. And like I told Courtney in episode number 39, where she is, you are, and where you two are, Jayla is, and where you three are, I feel that I belong.
Right.
So we go back a long, long time. And I met you, obviously, in the poetry scene. What is it about poetry to you that kind of fuels you to keep being a poet?
One thing I noticed in my writing and just sometimes in the way that I speak, people always like, oh, I say something, and like, oh, all right, poet. And I wasn't trying to be poetic.
Yeah.
It's just the way it comes to me.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, well, poetry is like one of the best ways for me to express myself to other people. And always knowing how to manipulate the English language to make people feel a certain way or to make people relate to me. It's like it just comes so easily to me. So I'm like, okay, well, poetry is my main thing.
So when you write, how many pieces do you write? Would you say did you write in like a week's time, a month's time?
Whatever come to me. Like I don't force it. So I hate anytime I have a deadline. Like, oh, can you write a new poem by this time? And it's like it's really hard for me because I like to take my time. I'm very patient with my craft. So if I start writing a poem and I know it's not where it's supposed to be, it might be another year or so before it's actually done. Yeah. But I can start things like every day, like just feeling something, about a certain situation. I might start something, but it's not a final draft. Yeah. So it might take almost a year to actually finish it.
Okay. Okay. So, blues, Blackbluez.
Blackbluez.
That's a name that you refer to or you use as a poet.
That's
as a poet.
Name.
How did you come up with that name?
Well, I was wanting to be a poet. I used to be an internet poet.
Okay.
And
you got to explain what that means.
Internet poet. Yeah. I never performed before.
Okay.
I was just writing poems, and I wanted somebody else's opinion. Because my family is going to say, oh, that's good. That's a great poem. Yeah. I needed people who didn't know me, who wasn't worried about my feelings, to say, hey, that's a great poem, for me to know I was on the right track. So there was a new website, and it was like Black something. And I was like, okay, well, I need a name. I wanted to relate to the website. So I was like, okay, well, Black. And I'm like, well, what could be like the opposite of that? Like, what's something that's going to be like Black and then take you in another direction? So I was like, oh, Blackbluez? Okay, sounds good to the ear. But then after that, I became a very revolutionary poet. I talked about most of my issues were Black issues when I started. So it kind of took on its own thing, Blackbluez, and the brother that write the poems about Black people. Okay. But yeah, at first it just came to me just like that. It was no thought behind it. Just I need two things, Blackbluez. Let's
go. So I harken back to the conversation I had with Jayla and the conversation that I had with Courtney, and they both mentioned that you were an incredible writer, right?
Oh, they're so sweet.
Like I said before, they both mentioned that you were an incredible writer. Right. What is it? How do you feel that you connect in your writing? Talk about, because we've spoken before about poetry, and there was one point in time where you wanted me to slam, but I had no idea why or how to do that. Right. And when I talked to Kodak and on the podcast, he said that you had a certain way of rearranging things and giving the input of making it sound differently and placing it in a better position. When you write, how is it that you connect to people or through people?
Right. Number one, you always hope to connect. You're not sure if it will connect. Yeah. So when you're writing, one thing I always say, people understand genuine human emotion.
Okay.
And to not try to write something and try to be so extra deep. Like I'm worried about how it sounds. No, let's really dig in there and be very honest about what we're writing. And then what Kodak spoke of is sometimes we'll write and we have a bunch of good things, but you have to know how to serve that.
Mm-hmm.
If you have like when you go out to eat, you get your drinks, then you get your appetizer, then you get your meal, then you get your dessert. But that's how it is with poetry. You don't just a mistake that I've seen a lot of poets do is they think of a good line and then they put that line, that's like the first thing that they say. And then they sit there and make us listen to 3 more minutes of it just, I don't want to say BS, but just this craziness because they had that good line that they want to get on stage and say. But no, when you have that good line, it got to come at the perfect moment, It's like eating a cool cup.
Yeah.
And that cool cup, you start at the beginning and it's like, oh, this is kind of good. Or, but when you get right to that middle part,
Yeah.
my mouth watering. You get to that middle part and it's all juicy and that's exactly, see what I'm saying? That's exactly where you want the good part to come.
Yeah.
So then you build around that.
Mm-hmm.
So you can have 2 or 3 good lines, and then once you start building on those 2 or 3 lines, all of a sudden you have created this thing where you're bringing people in. I like you. You're bringing people into that middle part.
Yeah.
And then you get them out of it, and then they leave, and they're like, you got the genuine human connection, and people like, hey, I can identify to that. Not just being a poet, or I can play with words, or I can use these words, these 50-cent words and big words, and no, you want that genuine human connection and emotion to go to the people, and that's about being completely honest.
Okay.
Being completely honest.
So, you wear so many hats. You wear so many hats. Not only are you a creative when it comes to writing, but you also have a daytime job. You also teach, right? And so one of the things that I was super appreciative of your craft was back in the day when we were doing the movie. And I like to call you my once upon a time acting coach.
Right?
I like
have a couple sessions.
Yeah, we did. And I love the way that you're able to, even when I see you direct, I love the way that you're able to tell us exactly what you know that people would like to see. Can you speak on that?
Well, like it's the same thing I was talking about, genuine human connection. And when it comes down to acting, because that was my first love, I was an actor first. And when it comes down to acting, people want to look and they want to get lost in the story.
Okay.
They don't want to look and see an actor on stage acting. They want to see it and they want to start to feel it. And if their heart must thump, then their heart is going to thump. And so that comes in acting, that comes about with being real as an actor. Don't act anything out. And that's one thing I always told you. Think back to something that's close to the situation. And when you get to that point of, okay, I remember this. This was close. Relive that in that moment. And if you're reliving it and you're feeling those emotions, it's going to transfer to the audience. Always.
Okay. Poetry in Houston, how would you describe it?
It's a lot of poets in Houston.
Okay.
It's the game is there's a lot of people.
Would you say oversaturated or?
No, because I like the fact that people want to express themselves. So do what you do. When it comes down to actually learning the skill of poetry and building on what you have, I feel like a lot of people just feel like, oh, let me perform. Okay. And they don't really want to get in there and learn their skill. There was one guy, he's like a new poet, and he was like, I haven't been able to make it out to the poetry scenes because I don't, my car broke down, I don't have a ride. And I said, well, you know what, that's great. Because at this point, you can start to build on your craft. So I told him, I was like, read, because you got to read a lot to be able to be a good poet. So I was like, read and write and study all the forms and then perform. And he was like, oh, it's a lot of that I just really don't want to do.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, like what part of it? And he was like, oh, yeah, the reading and the studying part.
Yeah.
I'm like, but that's what's going to make, like, whenever you hit the scene, after this situation is over, that's what's going to make you great, that you had the time to sit down and read and study and learn your craft, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And as a poet, I've been performing poetry for like 18 years.
Yeah.
And I can see somebody who just started 5 years ago or even yesterday, and I will take something from them. I will watch them, and I'm like, oh, I can learn from that.
Mm-hmm.
I like how they do this.
Yeah.
You know, I like how this person does that.
Mm-hmm.
And I just take it all and put my style to it, you know?
Yeah.
But some people don't want to learn from other people, or they just want to get on stage and, hey, you see me? I'm poeting.
Yeah.
I don't like that.
So give me your top 3, let's say, quote unquote, celebrity poets, and then give me your top 3 Houston poets that you feel like if you hear them perform, you pull you're inspired by them to spit.
Right. Well, so like celebrity poets or poets that are very well known. One of my favorite poets is Pablo Neruda. He writes all his work was in Spanish, but they translated into English, and it's some of the most beautiful work you will ever hear.
Mm-hmm.
Maya Angelou was one of my favorite poets, one of the first poets that I really studied. My mom bought me her whole anthology.
Mm-hmm.
And so Maya Angelou, and maybe I'll say Saul Williams.
Okay.
As a performance poet, yeah, Saul Williams. And locally in Houston, of course, Self the Poet, Rain, and Kodak.
Okay.
Yeah, those 3 amaze me, inspire me, you know, even as sometimes as their coach, sometimes they bring me, you know, material, well, you know, co-coach with Rain, but still a lot of times she will show me like something new that she has, and it just completely inspires me, like, wow. Like, and Kodak himself, same thing. And in Houston, I just think, I ain't trying to brag, but I think God Slam in Houston, some of the best poets that ever hit the stage in Houston.
Yeah. Talk about your technique in terms of, and maybe you've covered this, but your technique and God Slam's technique as to approaching a topic. Do y'all pick the topic? Do you go around in a circle and you say, okay, well, we're going to talk about love, and not just love, but abstract love between maybe God and his creation, or love between a mother and a daughter. Talk about how y'all technique towards approaching that
You
path.
mean like as far as when we write group poems?
Yeah. And when you write individually.
Individually, it's pretty much anything that comes to you, you can write about. You know, it's no restriction.
Okay.
You can just sit down and, hey, I have this, you know, feeling, I want to write this. As far as group poems are concerned, a lot of times one of us will have an idea, and we'll bring it to the group, say, hey, I think this would be good as a group poem. And that person is usually what I call the curator of the poem. So this is the poem, this is the topic, this is what we want to talk about. And then we go in our separate ways, and we all write what we think the poem should be. And then the curator takes all of the work and figure out what goes where. Figure out, hey, we don't need these lines, this is good. But then to connect this to that, we might need a couple more lines, so they'll write in some more lines just for the connection. But yeah, we pretty much go our separate ways, write the poem, then the curator puts it together.
Okay.
And if you've seen any of our group poems before, it sounds like one person wrote it.
Yeah.
And it's like 4 or 5 people sometimes have written that poem, but it sounds like one person wrote it because the curator has the final voice.
Yeah.
And so they kind of line it up, but it usually sounds like it's one person.
So when you slam, are all 4 of y'all reciting pieces of the poem, or is it just the best person in the group?
Oh, no. If we all write on it, it's a group poem, then we all perform at the same time.
Okay.
Yeah, they call it a multi-voice poem.
Okay.
Yeah.
What song's on your mind right now?
Fear by Kendrick Lamar.
Okay. And I'm gonna go with a from the Black Star album, Knowledge Yourself.
Okay.
And we had a basketball game at Waltrip today, and we were talking about 90s films and 2000s music, and I'm going to go with Tyrese Lately. Shout out to my wife, Kizzy Danae, former Dike. I love you.
What's that? Lately. Lately. Oh, I like that song. I ain't heard that in a long time.
Yeah, so it's on my mind. I'm thinking about it right now, and I text my wife that song when I was playing it in the car.
Mm-hmm.
So, Blackbluez, I think that I want to hear you recite a Thanksgiving poem or whatever poem. Whatever poem that you have prepared to recite.
I said a Thanksgiving poem.
I think
they came and killed everybody. No, yeah, I don't have one of those.
But grace us with something. Give us something.
Okay. Must I say the title?
No, you don't have to if you don't want to.
All right. To some people, for some reason, they say I look like Chadwick Boseman. Maybe it's something in the facial structure. They can't really put their finger on it, but they say I look like him. And before that, I seem to remind white people of Chris Rock. Maybe it's something in the way that I squint at them in disbelief that reminds them of him, but really, they say he could be my brother. And before that, I seem to remind people of Eddie Murphy. Maybe it's something in the gap tooth smile, or the laugh, or the black. See, when you tell me I look exactly like another black man, it's hard for me to take that as a compliment. When you stretch your vocal cords wide enough for me to see that racism resting inside your voice begins to split the air like the crack of a whip. When you feel comfortable enough to expose the fragments of your thoughts, kind of remind me of your great-great-great-grandmother. See, I can't quite put my finger on it, but it's something in your eyes, you know, the way they see all black people the same. And your brain is the spitting image of hers. I can't quite tell you what it is, but it is something, especially in that prejudice part. See, when you tell me I look exactly like another black man, it tells me you can't separate my innocence from another's guilt. My give is a dead ringer for his take. I got the same eyes as a black murderer. But when is the black man allowed to just be? See, they can't quite put their finger on it, but it's something in the way we barbecue, something in the way we check out at Starbucks, something in the way we check out at Airbnb, something in the way we peek out our window to see danger coming, something in the way we eat a bowl of ice cream in our own apartment that reminds them of suspicion, reminds them of criminal activity. Really, we could be a criminal, and ain't that the melting pot calling the nigga black? See, white folks are picking up cops, aiming them at our heads, discharged with intent to kill, and all of a sudden the police looks just like a pistol. And before that, just like a water hose. And before that, just like a perfectly knotted noose around a nigga's neck. And if I jump before the gun goes off, there's already a pre-written alibi scribbled across your tongue. The same tongue that say I look just like Eddie Murphy will say I look just like Tamir Rice. Especially the way my youthfulness will dissolve before your eyes. And before that, I look just like Eric Garner. Especially the way my windpipe will collapse in your hands. And before that, I look just like Trayvon. Especially in this bullet hole that I'm about to receive. You see? You see how that don't sound like no compliment? How your blindness to my individuality is a threat to my own safety? Today, I look just like Chris Rock. Tomorrow, I look just like Mike Brown. Especially around my chalk outline. That's it.
Hey, look, we've been Houston, Texas. We've been looking off camera at Courtney. The Elaine brand is in the building, but you got to give me the name of that poem. What's the name of the poem?
It's called Identical.
Identical.
Yeah.
And the inspiration behind it.
The inspiration came when I noticed, like, well, first of all, to white people, I look like every black actor ever in life. Like, and they think it's like a new idea to tell me, like, hey, you know who you look like. Which one? Because these people look nothing like each other, but I look like all of them.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, okay, So that was already one thing. I was like, I want to write a poem about how I look like every black actor to white people. And then I started seeing like, I was like, that's kind of scary, the fact that I look nothing like a lot of these black actors. Like we might have one thing in common, but they think I look exactly like them.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, if I was to be put in a lineup against somebody else, and that person, or they can't find the person, but then they see me, oh, he looks exactly like him. That's him. So I'm like, oh, so all of a sudden I would be guilty. And then all of the police getting called on the black people for, stupid reasons. I was like, oh, because it looks guilty, because guilty looks black. And that's how that poem came about.
Wow. Courtney's just shaking her head because last week she, like I said before in this episode, she said that you were just an amazing writer, right? And I harken back to the time period where I used to perform poetry with you and Jayla sometimes, and you would always ask me, well, why do you always have to write in that A B A B?
We can hear those couplets from a mile away.
And I just like. I heard you going all over the place with it, and I was like, "Wow, I just want to know how to write like that, or how to just be that expressive." And so that's why when I think about poetry, I always quiver because I can't get outside of how I normally write it.
Right. Well, a lot of it come in pre-writing too.
Yeah.
So you already, like, before I even start writing a poem, I have thought of a lot of things.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'll just jot them down. And I'm like, I gotta mention this. I have to mention that. And then you just free write and just kind of like I tell my students, just keep writing, but don't pick up the pen. Like whatever come to your mind, write that. Once you get that free write, and you start to kind of edit your poem and direct it, you have all this pre-writing and then the free write, and you can put it together and figure out where you want to go. And using other poetic elements other than rhyme actually help you get out of writer's block a lot.
Okay.
So using like alliteration, onomatopoeia, personification, metaphors and similes, which is figurative language. Once you get into doing that, all of a sudden you have more material than you actually need. Because you can say the same things, like, now I'm going to personify it. Now I'm going to, use it as figurative language. And so as you try the different things, then all of a sudden you have a whole poem. And like I say, sometimes extra. Like Kodak writes, it take him a long time to write, but when he's done, he has like 5 pages of work. And it's like, what do we do to get this 5 pages down to what you can use?
Yeah.
That's because he's trying all kind of things out.
When you say personification, what does that look like? What does that sound like?
Personification is to take an object that's not human and give it human qualities. Right? So if I was to say, the chair hugged me, that's personification.
Oh, okay.
So I feel, or the chair swallowed me whole, because that's what I feel like.
Okay.
That's personification.
Okay.
Yeah. So just to give human-like qualities to something that's not human.
Okay.
Right.
So, as a poet, right, and there's poetry, and then there's Maya Angelou. There's poetry, and then there's, like you said, Saul Williams. How do you, coming from the great city of Houston, Texas, get to the point where your name is known in Oklahoma or known in like Utah, California,
right,
New Jersey, places like that? How do you do that?
One of the biggest ways is, I guess, to get published.
Okay.
But also through slam poetry, you travel a lot, and then you get to know poets from all over. And then, you can hit them up and like, hey, I'm trying to do a tour. I'm going to be around your area. So then they may book you in those places. Also, you have Right About Now, which is they have a venue, but they also record a lot of the things. And they have a really, really, really good fan base for the videos that they put out. I'll actually have a video that's at like 92K right now.
What's the name of the video?
Right about now. The name of the poem is "Fabric of My Life." If you look it up on right about now, it might say something like "more than fashion" or something they put on there. I don't know why, but it says "more than fashion." It's at like 92K right now, and I've been getting. This is like over the last week and a half, 2 weeks that they posted it. And I've been getting like people emailing me and hitting me up, telling me like some great things. And I get to read like a bunch of comments about how people felt about that poem.
Yeah.
So that's another way.
Okay. Do you mind if I put it in the episode?
I can make as long as there's a link.
Okay.
A link to their page.
To their page, okay.
To their YouTube page. As long as there's a link to it, I'm sure it's fine.
Okay. So Houston, Texas, this is what we'll do. We're gonna take a look at what's the name of the video.
It's called "Fabric of My Life."
Fabric of My Life. You're now watching and listening to episode number 40 of the What's Next podcast, a production of Still Visionary Inc. This is Fabric of My Life.
So I was getting ready for this event, right? I was ready to be pulled up, together, swagged out. When asked what I was wearing, something in my description somehow turned my swag into sass, and I'm asked, bro, do you think your outfit's a little gay? So before the hell no could fall from my lips, I had to think. I've only seen my pants hang around other pants. I ain't never no skirts hanging around, and some of my pants have been mistaken for mom jeans, and my pants have rubbed up against a penis and may or may not have liked it. And my shirts don't like much sports. Don't like sweat wrapped all up in it. Might enjoy the Japanese blossom every now and then. And my shirts have never felt breast before. Only the sharp edges of a man, and on second thought, I'm like, damn. I think my clothes might be a little gay. See, they spend more.
So, Houston, Texas. We only played a brief moment of the Fabric of My Life. We only played a brief moment of Fabric of My Life, and Vince, why is that?
Just if you just go to the link and just watch the whole video, and see right about now, and look at the other poetry that they have on there, because they have some great poets. Like they really produce the best quality work that you will see come through Houston. So you'll see a lot of great poets. So it's a great opportunity to like, comment, subscribe to right about now.
Okay. So when you're slamming, right? How far in advance do you prepare for a slam?
Usually our slams start, like the actual slam to get on the team starts in like January. Well, for my team, starts like in January. We might wrap up about March. So then we have from March until like August to get everything together. But if you're a poet and you slam, you already, like, you don't stop. All year round you're trying to create that, because the earlier you get it, the better. You have more time to like practice the performance, as opposed to trying to write the poem with a deadline.
Yeah. So the earlier you get what?
The earlier you get your poem done.
Okay.
So like if I can get a poem written before slam season, and it's to that level that I want it to be at, then that's great, because when I go into writing, that can already be included in the roster, as opposed to having to write a new poem and get it ready, and then you don't have that much time to perform it and get it to where you can you're performing well, and then get to the be comfortable enough to slam with it, because in slam you have to be very comfortable. It can't be a new poem that you've never even really practiced a lot.
Wow. So I never knew all of this about poetry. I thought poetry was the one thing that you just jot down and perform,
Right.
and I didn't know that it was levels to it. Where do you see yourself? Let me save that question. Okay. So today is November the 25th, 2019, Thanksgiving week, right? Thanksgiving being this Thursday. We have 36 days left in the 2019 year. What do you see yourself attaining in 36 days?
Well, there is this contest that I saw online. I was just like scrolling, and it's with Button Poetry, and they're doing a chapbook contest, and it's due in January. But I already talked about deadlines.
Mm-hmm.
But there's this whole concept that I've come up with that I really want to, tackle, and so that's what I will be working on for the rest of the year. And not putting myself out, not performing too much, because I always like to write more than I perform,
Mm-hmm.
and read more than I write.
Mm-hmm.
So, just kind of closing myself in and focusing on the message that has been brought to me, and getting that out to the world.
Let me pick your brain right quick. I was listening to a podcast on the way here, and as a poet, I want to hear what you think of this phrase. What do you think of the phrase? People think that the white man's ice is colder. What does that mean to you?
People think that the you say people think that the white man's ice is colder.
Yeah. What and when you hear that phrase, what do you think about? What do you think about when you hear that phrase?
Just people thinking that no matter what a white person has or whatever they can do, it's always going to be better than what you have or what you can do.
Okay. And I mean, I was just listening to a podcast. Rest in peace to Combat Jack, and rest in peace to Nipsey Hussle. I was listening to their podcast, and he was just talking about that. And knowing that we were going to do this podcast, I wanted to hear what you thought about that phrase,
Right.
because he referenced that phrase in the same manner that you referenced it right now.
Oh,
So I just wanted to hear. I just wanted to hear what you thought about that.
you know what I'm saying?
Okay, so now, as a poet, have you ever gotten to the point in poetry where you say, okay, well, this is predominantly what I want to do. I won't screenwrite. I won't, write for a TV show. I won't do anything else, or is just poetry your lane?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, poetry is just something, like I said, I fell into, especially performance poetry. Because like I said, acting was my first love. And then I like to write. So performance poetry is marrying the two.
Okay.
I get to perform. I get to, feel those emotions and put them on stage. And it's also something that I wrote. So, like I said, it was just the two. But other than that, I mean, me and Courtney have been writing a script for a play that I think is just going to blow the world's mind once they get a chance to see it. And like I said, also I started off writing TV shows, and I would come up with a TV show when I was young, and whenever I was bored, I would write an episode to the show.
Okay.
I'm like, okay, well, and it's just writing is what I do. Poetry is just one of the ways that really, really came to me, and I express myself. But I would never say I'm just going to focus on this and not focus on the other.
Okay. Okay, so you talk about. See, this is the thing. All right. Last episode, I inserted a clip of Jayla talking about Courtney and you. Okay. This episode, I'm going to insert a clip of Courtney talking about you and her and Jayla.
Yeah. I actually had a conversation with Vincent or Blackbluez earlier today, and we spoke about that. And what I thought in that moment when he kind of said, well, let's do this instead of what we had originally, come into the circle and talked about doing. I told him, as my friend, I really felt like that was a moment where he said, let me protect her.
No doubt.
And
I felt the same way.
Yeah, because and that's why we've been around each other for so many years. That's why he is family. That's why he's like my brother now.
Yeah. So talk about your relationship with Courtney and how that manifests in your creativity.
Right. Okay. So with Courtney, it was God made Courtney and I friends before we met each other.
Okay.
He built all these things that made us so much alike and so similar, and it's scary sometimes that we think so much alike or we say the same things. It's like, what is going on? You're looking at her like, how did you know that I was going to say that? Or how did you know I was thinking like that? When we actually met each other, and I was like, oh, she's cool. Let me get her number, Our phone number was the same, except the last number. Like, but she's giving me her phone number. I'm looking like, this is my phone number, nigga. You know? And get to the last number. That was the only thing different.
Okay.
So how weird is that, you know?
Yeah.
And when it came down to creativity, I was like, okay, well, I told her, like, I'm a poet, and I asked her to go to a poetry spot with me. She said, okay, and she stood me up the first time. Yeah. She was like, I know I said I was going to go with you tonight, but we're moving, and they want me to help, and I was like, so, yeah, she stood me up. But then the next time, I was like, hey, look, the guy, I think it was Pumpkin from Pluto, and at the Breakfast Club, and she had a show, and I was like, yo, we got to go. And she was like, okay. And I'm like, the girl better not stand me up. But we got lost. We got so lost going there. But we started going, and then all of a sudden, she was my poetry buddy. We would go out to the poetry spots. You know, I got to know all the people, you know, and then she writes poetry too. Mm-hmm. Okay? She's a very great poet. Mm-hmm. But for some reason, she just really don't share that with people.
Yeah.
You know, but I understand sometimes you want to keep stuff to yourself. But yeah, she's a great poet and great writer. And then, like, we always hung out at EB5. And I know your next question is going to be like, well, what about Jayla? So, hey, here I go. So we start going to EB5 a lot, which is an international art gallery ran by Toby. I don't remember his last name. Toby. And
the rapper from Houston?
He's not a rapper.
Okay.
No. Oh, Toby. Shout out to Toby. That's my boy.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm cool
Okay.
with him. So
EB5.
EB5, yeah. Toby. And all of a sudden, I already knew Jayla from being on the scene, but I didn't know her. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden, like, she saw, you know, we started communicating at EB5. She invited us out to a house party. We went over there, had a good time. But then all of a sudden, it's like, it went from this is my poetry friend to this my friend for real, you know? Mm-hmm. We did things together. I was dating a young lady at the time, and she just loved, because at the time, Jayla and, so let's not say that. So at the time, Jayla was in a relationship. And it kind of started at the same time as my relationship. So my girl wanted everybody to be, like, didn't want us to hang out with single people. Okay. Wanted us to hang out. So then Jayla and her person became... Stop. Jayla and her person became our people. Yeah. And even afterwards, like, Jayla's just that magnet that everybody just, I got to be around her. Yeah. And so sweet, so nice. I could just be like, oh, Jayla, call her up and talk to her about anything, you know? Yeah. So that's how me and Jayla connected. Then she started writing plays. She wanted me to direct, and I've directed every play that she's done. Yeah.
I remember.
I know. You were there. Yeah, I've directed every play that she's put together. Yeah. I know I only want what's best for her. Yeah. And I see her vision, and I try to bring that to life. And sometimes I insert myself to the point that I think it's my play. And I'm like, yo, this is what we need to do, you know. But, yeah, I care about her and what she does with J. Laura Productions.
No doubt. So, every play that you have directed, mm-hmm. I've except for one,
except Karma,
I've been there, right? Mm-hmm. I know the process of preparing for the play, the day of, the week of, the months before, right? Talk to us about how when you prepare to do that poem right mm-hmm. before or during intermission, or well, really before that poem, and the difference between you preparing for that poem and you preparing for like a slam or a stage poem that you're going to do at an event.
Right. So with most of the time with her poem, with her plays, I open up, and as the director, I know that I have to kind of set the tone, and me going up first. In slam poetry, they have this thing called a sacrificial poet. So this person is not a part of the slam. They just go up and they're judged, and it's just to kind of, you know, set the tone. And I know that my actors are ready, but I feel like once they know, he's gonna go on stage first.
You kind of break the ice.
Right. Let him go up. Let him do his thing. And then when I hit that last line and the curtains open, it's like, y'all ready.
Yeah.
Like, let's do this.
Yeah.
And people don't know. I get off I work at the play.
Yeah.
So I get off that stage from doing my poem and I go backstage and I don't care. I'm doing all kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I've worked the curtains a lot of times,
Yeah.
for y'all. But my thing is, okay, let me do this. And then when I get off stage, it's y'all moment.
Yeah.
And I want y'all to shine and show everybody what we've, been working so hard on.
When you get to that point, when it's we're talking about, let's just take for example forever. Well, no. Let's just take for example, Love Is. When we did Love Is, and I know that when you started that poem, we lay awake. What was the poem?
We lay awake at the darkest part of the night.
Yes, when you start that poem, my mind goes to that dark tunnel, and all I see at the end is just the last line that's gonna bring us out before a curtain call. But for me, please, would you recite maybe just half of that poem?
Okay.
If you remember it, and I'll tell you
try.
why. And I'll tell you why. I asked you to do that.
Okay. We stayed awake the darkest part of the night, gaining witness in a twinkle of the stars. The air was filled with the scent of sugarcane burning, and I ask you, yo, what exactly is this feeling spilling over? You said, speaking this to anyone would be absurd. No one would understand the language that our tongues created or the humidity of passion fumbling from our mouths. We'll only hear the constant clicking of consonants and not the easy moaning of vowels. Mistake the sweat of our romance for tears dripping from heaven's eyes, and if it ever were a verb, it would only be half of what we're doing, and I agree. Because somehow, God hid heaven in your fingertips. Your touch is hallelujah rumbling in my belly. You kiss me like there's a gospel song burning your throat. Give me your good news and I'ma tell it. Like Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, I will testify to your greatness. Place in books for all ages to read the gospel according to oh my God and ooh wee. According to soft kisses on unexpected necks. Chill bumps find their place in my skin. Placed gently in the indents of your fingerprints. My mind prays not to forget. And I think that's why I forgot.
But
That was a chunk.
there was when I was writing script wise to be able to have these scripts so that I could produce them. Right. I was thinking about that poem that you spat, and the first part of the script that I wrote was that me and this girl were laying wide open in the bed. Just couldn't talk, couldn't face each other, didn't have any words to say, and I was like, that would be a dope idea if I took Bluez to the studio, had him record that, and I put that in the beginning of that short film.
Right.
And I want to ask for your grace on that one. Could I get you to do that for me?
Most def.
And I wanted to record in the White Room where me and Courtney recorded episode number 39, but I couldn't get in there today.
Right.
But I want to do that. I want to do that because I want to produce that poem. I want to produce that short film sometime next year.
No problem.
And I need that. I need that energy to for you to start the short film off like that.
No problem.
So man, I want to play a word association game with you. And I'll give you a word, and you tell me if you've ever used it or the poem that you may have used it in.
Oh, that's gonna be hard. Okay.
or not necessarily if you used it, the word per se, but if you referenced that verb or that action in a poem.
Okay.
Okay. The first word I want to go with is isolation. The name of the poem.
No.
Okay.
Or maybe isolation. Maybe no.
Okay.
No.
Okay. Okay. The next word is love.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I have plenty of love poems, which is crazy. I usually write them for specific events, but I don't write them just because. But I have plenty of love poems.
The next word is forsaken.
Forsaken. I'm sure. Oh yeah. In my bird poem.
Okay. What's the name of the poem?
Bird.
Bird.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The next word is Error.
Error? No poems about no errors.
Okay, and
What's so crazy is I might have some, and it might be in there, but I don't. When I memorize poems, I really don't think of the words. I think of the emotion. So as it's there. Sometimes I go back and read a poem that I performed 1,000,000 times, and then this time I'm actually reading it, and I'm looking like, wow, I said that. Like, it's like I'm amazed by the actual wording when I think about it. But it's like the poem takes on like emotional blocks. So I know from here I start off like this, then I move to this. So I really don't concentrate on that one word, or it might start off as that one word, but by the time I perform it, it turns into something else.
Okay. And my last word is forbidden.
Forbidden, yes. I have a poem called "Before We Were Done."
Okay.
By the serial killer. It's a real life serial killer, and he would strangle his women and kill them, and they found like 11 bodies on his property. And I wrote a poem, but I switched it, so it was a love poem. And he was trying to explain to the judge why he did what he did.
So you wrote from
I wrote from his perspective
of explaining to the judge.
because he originally said that he was not guilty. So I was like, well, how can this man with 11 bodies on his property say I'm not guilty? So I was like, okay, so I gotta explain how he could be not guilty. And so it became a love poem.
Okay.
And he was like, yeah, they quit before we were done.
Oh.
It's their fault. They chose heaven instead of me.
Oh, okay. Okay. Was he psychotic? Well, obviously.
Well, at first they tried to say, like, I think they tried to plead insanity, but then they took that plea away. So
okay.
I think he's in jail now.
Okay.
Anthony Sowell, I think they had locked him up, and he ain't getting out.
Okay.
He not getting out.
Okay.
Because
So this short film or this play that you're writing with Courtney, do you have any details, anything that you can give us? And do I have a part in it?
You could.
Okay.
You could.
Okay.
And let's see. Yeah, I can go into detail about it.
Okay.
It addresses
Okay.
Molestation.
Okay.
And also addresses family and understanding like how different people are affected by molestation.
Yeah.
Right? Set in New Orleans, baby.
Okay.
That's my New Orleans accent. I'm from Shreveport. Don't get it twisted. So I can force out a New Orleans accent. You heard me, baby. You heard me. That's how they. I'll be like, yeah, we heard you as loud as you talking. You heard me? Yes.
So
we heard you.
So when are you and Courtney planning on doing the
this play?
Yeah.
I swear for God, this has been a work in progress. We've been working on it for years, and the story is written. All of the dialogue is not written.
Okay.
And so we have to really get ourselves together and write this dialogue and get it out there because the story is just ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
Okay. And when you wrote it, and whose experiences did you pull from to write it?
Well, one thing like that we thought about was one thing that was apparent to me was I didn't know that people were getting molested at the rate that they were being molested, and I was blessed to never be molested in my life because my mom didn't play no games. We couldn't go nowhere. No, you stay in this house. So nobody ain't touching on you.
Yeah.
And as I believe it, Courtney has never been molested either.
Okay.
As I know.
Okay.
And but we were on the phone one day and we started talking about how people were molested, and it's like it kind of went past our heads. So it was like we need to write a story about this. And so we did all our research because we research.
Okay.
We did all our research. We looked up characteristics, and from those characteristics, we developed characters. So each character in the play is a characteristic of somebody who's been molested,
Mm-hmm.
and then you put them all in one place, and then just watch the thing work out. So, and they have to confront a lot of demons.
Yeah.
They have to confront a lot of demons. And one thing I don't want to tell too much, but one thing that they actually have moved into the house that they were molested in.
Oh.
And so
okay.
all of a sudden, all those
Memories.
feelings start to come back.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, that one's gonna be a. But you know what? As heavy as the content is,
Mhm.
when you read the dialogue that we have, it's so fun.
Okay.
Oh my God, it's like they crack you up. You know, the characters, they're lively and they're hilarious, and so it's like it's not all the content is heavy, but we were careful not to just make it a big, deep, dark thing. It was something that you can follow, and like you start to fall in love with the characters and love who they are, and then all of a sudden it's explained why they are the way they are.
Mm-hmm.
So
So, there's a before I get into this next question. All right, you're from the north side.
the north side of Houston,
Yeah.
I'm for sure you put Louisiana.
Okay, but okay. So when you moved, to Houston, what side of the city are you
Yeah,
from?
Acres
in-
Homes, Texas.
Okay, and you went to what high school?
I was supposed to go to MacArthur. I went
Okay.
there my 9th grade year, and then I went to Carver
Okay.
High School of Applied Technology, Engineering, and the Arts, in which I was in the arts strand.
Okay. Okay, so there's a kid from Acres Homes. We won't be gender specific.
Okay.
There's a kid from Acres Homes. He goes to Carver and he finds out that an alum from Carver is heavy on the poetry scene, like yourself. You are that person, right? What bit of advice are you gonna give him to get started with poetry and to make a headway in poetry?
Right. Don't be like me and
Okay.
be so fearful in the beginning of your career and be afraid to write things that you know are true. And, you know, for a long time, I only wrote about things. I never wrote about me and my connection to life and how certain things showed up in my life. And now I'm ready to do that.
Yeah.
And, you know, here I am. I've been performing for almost 18 years. And, you know, so I would tell them, like, hey, write now. Write what you feel. Write what you know is true. And be unapologetic about it because that's your truth.
Yeah.
And can't nobody tell you, like, that's not your truth.
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of the material that they will write from that perspective would be great. You know, like you said, I teach high school, middle school, and now elementary. I go into the schools and I teach poetry. And one thing I make sure is like, let's not censor a voice. If you want to say it, say it. If that's how you feel, that's how you feel. Put that out there.
Okay.
All right.
Most importantly, the last question I'll ask is, what's next for you, Blackbluez?
Right. So I have like I talked about the chapbook that I want to enter into a contest, and if I don't win, I'm still gonna put that chapbook out because this is like the concept for it is really good. And then I also want to actually publish the rest of my poetry because that chapbook will be kind of themed. I want to produce the rest of my poetry and put it in a book, so that'll come towards the end of the year. And then the chapbook should come earlier. I also want to finish the play. There's a Leak. It's the name of the play. I want to finish that with Courtney. We also have a Black History program that we've been trying to get off the ground called Each One Teach One. It does not have to happen in February because who says that's when Black History Month is? We can do that in March, April, May, June, July. Ain't Tangy shout out.
I think March is National Women's Month, though.
Yeah, but we can still do it. Black
Okay.
women. If it's National Women's Month, we can focus on Black women.
No doubt.
And it's really a monthly program. We have plenty of episodes that, like, Courtney and I have a history of starting things, having great ideas that we never really finish.
Yeah.
So I want to definitely do those 4 things. So finish my chapbook, finish my published book with all my collection of poems, then the play, and the Black History program.
Okay.
And I'm sure Jayla is going to have something for me.
Yeah.
I'm so sure.
So, as a token of the podcast and my company, I like to present every feature that comes on the podcast with this black SVI T-shirt as just a token that you were here, and whenever you wear it, I know that Blackbluez did my podcast.
Hey, I
Okay.
like it. I'm gonna wear it with I have this blue jean denim jacket I wear it with. And
No doubt.
Maybe these white pants. I'm just playing. But thank you so much.
No doubt. I want to say welcome to the 40s, Houston, Texas. I want to say Blackbluez, you're the illest poet I know.
Oh,
I want to say Courtney Durden, Courtney Elaine, the Courtney Elaine brand, Courtney Elaine Designs.
Right.
I want to say welcome back to episode number 40. I want to say Houston, Texas, we are here. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Hey, Miss Blue, happy birthday to you.
Happy birthday, Miss Blue. I love you.
Welcome to Sagittarius season. And Houston, Texas, I do what I do for myself so that I can prove that I can do it for others. Peace and blessings.
Yo, it feel like 95. Sachi on my body. Biggie, jigger, puffy. All that ballin' is a hobby. And I'm wildin' in my wallies. And them valleys, no Pilates. More weight, get you more wet. Nah, that's these Spumante. My crystal ball, I see crystal. I crystal y'all with that. I saw the sign like Ace of Spades. That Ace of Spades get cracked me like cheers to the money guy. The Willie niggas who buy them bottles. And then they spill these liquors. Yo, salute my dude. I see you, dog. 5 bottles, 1 dick. Why I need 2 bras? I know I'm out of line, but love is shower time. You know it rose rain when your cloud is 9. Get off that high ass hussy. This a private party. Been on my dick too long. Your breath on private party. You gon' be nice and naughty. These walls on priceless Audi. This the upper crust. Fuck is up. Over and done. Overdose. Yes, we did it again. Sipping with no remorse. We gon' do it again.